So you probably might be blown away by this topic I'm about to talk about, which is basically politics in an all-nonsense fashion. Maybe probably keep it as simple and straightforward with you all as best as possible, because you might be surprised from a regular consumer like me, and particularly to however your opinions have been jumped forward by all of the tensions of what's been going on, whether economically and how well economically contributive that we have been as people, right? So particularly I go back to what we all love and hate the most, politics. It's like our charity event of the month. Every time we sit down at the dinner table, gathering events, family functions, whatever topic comes up, politics, and the people that we hate the most, right? Really, the weakness that we have to learn about is the only enemy isn't ourselves, and me included. So, like Franklin Roosevelt has always said, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself, and that's one of probably the main concepts that you've probably learned about it in school, but you've probably also taken granted for from what you've learned in history. If you don't learn history, you're destined to repeat it. So, history today actually has repeated itself. Hear me out on this, and whatever label of content or names that you want to call me, a bigot or a MAGA supporter, Trump supporter, Biden supporter. So I particularly read between the lines, and one of the things I was taught in school was to read between the lines. References. Refer back to your sources. I've built up on some really great credibility I've learned from both sides of the politics between Biden and Trump. Trump, for example, is another person who has actually showed yet today, and since when he did get ousted from his first 4 terms of his presidency, only because he actually exposed the system. All the wrong deeds, all the bad deeds that the system did to actually the American economy. Yes, of course, he tried to mend some things, but also had some power tripping effects, like his rhetoric or his crazy actions that he's done. And of course, like he's doing today when he's trying to show efforts to come back on his second term. So, after studying about him, I read between the lines of what's going on with him. So in retrospect, to show you why he's coming back, and I'll show you 2 samples of sources and books that he's read, more than likely that I've read, started reading halfway through. Trump, The Art of the Deal, and one of the very best famous books written by Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, which is a great book that every successful person raves about, especially in the billionaires' mindsets, right here, this book. So, if you still hear me out on this, and if you're still with me, you can just as well turn off this video, give me a middle finger and emoji and say goodbye, and you can say and carry on about your days. So one of the things that we have been so worried about today is today's economic catastrophe, the struggles of the inflation rate. Yes, the current inflation rate is existing right now, and we are at a very bad percentage. Right now, to the point, of course, given the factors that we are worried today more than when we are worried right now back then when Jimmy Carter was around. Now, everybody likes Biden. Everybody loves the guy. He cherishes him like a charmed boy who walks across the red line. In this case, everyone has their opinions, but I have mine as well. So, by the way, hear me out. Biden is the epitome, is how Jimmy Carter showed around the 1970s inflation rate. You know the history, you can catch up on that. You can just as well check my credibility and who I am as a person, but I'm just a consumer. I'm telling you the exact information of what I see and what I read between the lines. Another reason why, what I perceive the reason that Trump is coming back is because for his second term, he actually wants to concentrate on mending the binds of the American economy. The 5 leaders that he's confronted for previously, President Xi of China, the president of Iran, president of Russia, Vladimir Putin. He wants to come back so he can mend not only the America's binding economy, but also the world's problems. That's what's going on today. The world, many problems, the crisis in Ukraine. I particularly speak from my experience because I've been one of the examples of people who've witnessed former USSR, the Russia's empire, when the Soviet Union was around. So in today's perspective of history and how it's being repeated all the way from 1945 to the present time of what it is today. I'm not raving about why Trump's going to come back. I'm not going to rave about how he's going to fix America. I'm just going to rave about what we ourselves consumers need to worry about, because every day that we carry about the daily activities and responsibilities that we have to take care of, right? You can just as well learn from a self-developed expert on how you can fix your responsibilities. But if you actually want to worry about your pockets and where your pockets of hard-earned money is going, this is why you have to pay attention to the economy. This is why you have to vote. This is why you have to exercise your constitutional rights. Or you're going to get shylocked, which you are right now. We are getting shylocked in this case. Not everybody sees that, but I saw it from my perspective. Now I can tell you the many sources of books that I've read and many sources of credible sources that you've probably come across and seen. To tell you as a prospective consumer, the average consumer would tell you what's going on, like as myself. But in the case of why it's so important to take care of your primary obligations is because so that we are not going to get run over. Right now, perfectly speaking, Biden himself is, as a president, the sitting president of the government, he's getting himself run over, trampled, whitewashed. So we have to reconsider the premise and the full responsibilities of not just the America's leadership, but also the world leadership at large. And one of the things that, and I've read between the lines of what Trump has mainly stated in one of his United Nations speeches, to make sure he gathers the binds and mends agreements to make sure that countries' leaders can have peaceful agreements and not negative charges of issues and problems that arise in the world, challenging stages of war and turmoil. Every country wants to obviously have a prosperous and productive economy, right? So I tell you from my perspective, and listen to your constituents. Ask government leaders to listen to your constituents. Find out what's going on. Obviously take account for the exact economic activities so you can make proper regulated and between what's going on in state and federal level sectors. Most of you think that it's not going to work, but it can work. Proper delegation and obligation of all, considering a mutual dialogue, it will work. The primary reasons why it's not working is because you're following the same formula. Another reason why, there's a lot of sitting government representatives who follow the same formula for many years. You can ask me, what kind of formula is that? Well, figure it out just as how you read through economic books, right? So in retrospects to, all right, why I am raving about all of this, because it matters 4 years from now. It's going to matter 8 years from now. You have to wake up. So wake up, wake your neighbors up, wake your coworkers, wake up your parents, your mom and dad, and tell them you have to worry about your future. This is primary security for you, your family, your future. And another reason, perfect example why I resemble Trump as an example, because he showed just as many examples in his speeches. It may be repetitive, it may be rhetorical, but if you're actually paying attention to his words, you just might learn something. So, hear me out from a consumer perspective, and I learn from his side. I can just as well rave about his Art of the Deal book, and I can just as rave about his negotiations. Yeah, just as any sitting president might have made mistakes domestically and foreign, and going dates back to when COVID happened, how COVID hit us so bad and severely. We have to learn from that and actually preserve what's more important. Anyway, take this as a grain of salt and learn from it. So I'll touch back with you at another time, and be well, stay safe.